So we are going to go on in chapter 25, where we left off, by the words of V'chein, or as you can see it in the English or in the text papers, V'chein b'pchinas v'asei tov, which is including in the asei tov, which what Alter Rebbe is saying over here is that we know that Torah mitzvahs, to be precise, are divided and compartmentalized as the loisese and the mitzvahs aseh. This which we're prohibited to do, and this which we're commanded. We have a mandate to do, like putting on tefillin, and lighting, and putting up a mezuzah, shaking the lulav esrog, etc., etc. There's 248 positive mitzvahs, as they're called, and 365 negative mitzvahs, as it's called. Negative literally because we stay away from them. Both of them together comprise it 613 mitzvahs. So in the context of what we're learning over here, based follow-up of the last class, Alter Rebbe was saying how careful one has to be with a loisese, with any aveda, knowing that Hashem says that it's prohibited to do, to execute. One looks at it based on all this in-depth explanation of the Alter Rebbe in the previous classes, and again culminating in the last week's class, focusing on the severity and the gravity of Aveda, any sin, because ultimately every sin is tantamount to Aveda Zara, to idolatry, and one, in the very nature of the Yid, is to give up his life when it comes to idolatry, as we've seen in our difficult past. Over so many thousands of years, of hundreds of thousands of Yidden, even more than that, have gave up their lives not to chas v'shalom renounce the oneness of Hashem, maybe even for a moment, maybe in something so external like prostrating oneself to an idol, speaking words of heresy, and so on and so forth. Because again, this is the very innate nature of the Yid, to stand strong, even if it means that he has to give up his life. He or she would give up his life. We gave the story, said the story of Chaninah and her 7 sons, but again, we don't need not to look very far. It is unfortunately proven in our long, difficult, and painful history, where Yidden were challenged, as well as in this very sin of the sin of idolatry. And the Alter Rebbe explained that ultimately every sin, therefore by every sin, one has to be determined, similar as one is determined not to give up his life, and determined chas v'shalom with, in other words, determined with every consequence based on his determination to, God forbid, not to violate the lo yelecha l'kim acherim al ponai, of the second command, not to chas v'shalom renounce the oneness of Hashem. Similarly, a Yid looks at every single Aveda in the same fashion. And Alter Rebbe even added this notion that even though I can identify with the difficulty, many times we're challenged with enormous temptations which are presented in front of us, chas v'shalom, that we violate, maybe in action, maybe in speech, maybe even in thought, as we know that one is prohibited, we are prohibited to entertain our minds with thoughts which are prohibited. Again, we are prohibited, namely in the context of immodesty, is again based on the pasuk v'leisasur achri levavchem, which means, again, we mentioned this a number of times, that even thought plays a role in our avodas Hashem. This is a clear violation based on it's a Torah mandate that we stay away. We maintain a clear and pure mind, vision, eyes and ears and so on, which would ultimately can chas v'shalom taint our thoughts, and one would stay away from any type of sin in the same fashion, again, maybe in action or in speech or in thought, despite the great temptation which one can be challenged. Yet the person knows, and the person, as he stays focused, and he understands what the Alter Rebbe is getting at over here with his explanation. And in other words, not only a suggestion that we are adequately careful, but explaining that essentially, virtually, every sin is about denying the oneness of Hashem. Again, one could look it up and see in the previous classes, which we have this kosher tube, which in koshertube.com, and with a text on TanyaOnline.com. follow up with the previous classes, again on this very, very important and profound presentation of the Alter Rebbe, how he explains how every sin is similar to the Leila Chalikim Acherim Alpane, again the violation of idolatry. And so the Alter Rebbe says that I can identify with the effort which needs to the exertion, or one needs to demonstrate his determination not to follow through, not to violate any Aveira. But the Alter Rebbe says when it comes to death, we understand and we could have an appreciation of death being much more painful than the strain, the tsar, the pain which one endures, let's call it pain, or the difficulty one endures to hold himself back, not to give in to an impulse, a lust, a temptation, which the Alter Rebbe says I can identify with the pain, identify with enormous efforts, cords of what one has to be, or efforts, or one has to exhaust in order to hold himself back when he's challenged with a temptation, again maybe an action or speech or even thought. But the pain of death is much greater, much more grave. The pain of death is much more of a painful experience, more than just holding back from, or then holding oneself back from a taiva, a temptation. Yet for Avodah Zarah, which is the essentially and virtually every leisas for Avodah, starting from Avodah Zarah, one would ready to give up his life for, and again it's part and parcel of the Yid to give up his life, literally to expire, to die, not to chas v'shalom violate, even in an external fashion, like he said, in bowing down or speaking words in denial of Hashem. And yet one was ready to expire again, even to completely die al kiddush Hashem, to sanctify Hashem's name, with all the pain which goes along with it. How much more so the one would sacrifice, let's call it that taiva, that temptation, and despite its difficulties, yet he understands that it's less than the difficulty of pain and of death, and the difficulty of death one would accept upon himself. Hence, one has to understand, based on this premise, this predication, that every sin is about Leila Chalikim Acherim Alpane. Therefore, he's ready to go. He's ready to do everything, even when it's very painful. And and this is what we ended off last week, which is again in the context of Leisas, which is the negative. In other words, the one holding himself, one determined to hold himself back, chas v'shalom, not to violate anything, any mitzvahs. Leisas, meaning what Hashem says not to do, to God forbid go ahead and do. A Yid stands strong because he understands that everything is synonymous with Leila Chalikim Acherim Alpanai, which is the Aveira, the sin of idolatry. Anechi, starting from the first one of the 10 commandments, Anechi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, which is again the announcement, the proclamation, or the living with the notion of Hashem Echad. Hashem is everything and everything is Hashem. Again, just throwing a little bit few tidbits over here of the previous classes, the Achdus Hashem, this last few words is Anechi Hashem Lekecha, the first two of the Seres Adibres, which, but in the end of the day, they're all about Achdus Hashem, Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, Hashem being not only one, but everything is part of this oneness of Hashem. So that in the previous weeks, again, or where we left off, was in the context of Leisas, which means the negative mitzvahs, which one must hold himself back from not doing. Today's lesson, Alter Rebbe drags this spirit, the spirit of this presentation, as well to the world of Asay Tov, as well to the world of the positive mitzvahs, which is as well at times challenging. And even though different, the challenge is different. There, when it comes to Leisas, it's more a temptation to chas v'shalom to go ahead and violate. While in the context of Asay Tov, of doing what Hashem wants, it's not a temptation not to do. It's just a certain laziness, laid-backness, if you will, which tells a person, don't get so excited, don't rush to the mitzvah, don't invest too much of your time in the mitzvah, certainly not your focus. in the mitzvah. Don't put your passion in the mitzvah. You don't have to do it so perfect. If do it at all, maybe today it's a day off regarding these mitzvahs, or when it comes to learning Torah, we know a person has to learn Torah assiduously, diligently, and when it comes to learning Torah, sometimes we can cut corners, sometimes with the chavrusa we could cut corners, we could talk about this and talk about something else and give it just a few moments, or even a nice part of the time which is designated to learn Torah, but yet we don't fulfill every moment. We are laid back. We're a little bit relax in our performance of mitzvahs, and one could understand and appreciate that it is challenging to be constantly on top of it, to do things right, to buy a nice esrog, to give a lot of tzedakah. For example, Rabbi gives over here and explains the mitzvah of tzedakah, because a person also there, particularly in that area, a person could always find reasons to, not so much, I don't have to give, I just gave yesterday, give me a little break, etc. So the alternative is, it is appreciable. One can appreciate that it is a challenge, because it's something that the animal soul, the nefesh habahamis, offers the person or explains the person to be a little bit lax on his observance, on his commitment, on his performance, on a perfect performance in the context of mitzvah saseh. Comes the Alter Rebbe and says, let's put it in the face of that same challenge of one giving up his life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we know that just like every mitzvah leisesa is about the second command, which is the second one of the commandments, rather, which is the sin of idolatry, and similarly when it comes to mitzvah say, the positive mitzvahs, every mitzvah say is about Aneichi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, and just like for that mitzvah, Aneichi Hashem Elokecha Le'elachim Akim Achem Lapani, one is ready to give up his life, to literally sacrifice himself, to expire, not chas v'shalom, to violate this mitzvah, or these mitzvahs of Aneichi Hashem Elokecha or Le'elachim Akim Achem Lapani. Similarly, when it comes to mitzvah vasei tov, true, it's a challenge, true, it's an effort, true, there's something within us that tells us, sit back, relax, don't be so adamant, don't be so passionate about mitzvahs, yet place these two challenges. Which one is a greater challenge? Which one is a greater pain? Naturally, again, the pain of death. And the pain of death, one would allow himself to experience, not to chas v'shalom violate this mitzvah of Aneichi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. In other words, the mitzvah of idolatry, the mitzvah is to stay away, not to chas v'shalom commit idolatry, to align oneself with the oneness of Hashem. One is ready to give up his life. So place that in comparison to, let's call it, the pain of overcoming this laziness, which again we could identify. We know what it's all about, but it is a challenge. But place that in the face of the pain or the difficulty of overcoming a challenge, overcoming laziness, overcoming laid backness, overcoming a certain apathy when it comes to mitzvahs. Place that in the face of death. Death is much more painful. And death, I was ready to die to stay aligned with the oneness of Hashem. Similarly, a Yid has to when he puts things in the right perspective, he would also do everything he can to strengthen himself, even when it takes much effort. And again, it's every mitzvah. Tzedakah could be sometimes a person makes a decision to give more tzedakah, or to give the right amount of tzedakah, or he gives a little more than he had in mind to give. Sometimes it takes even more effort than just going ahead and shaking a little of an esrog, which I don't mind being so passionate. It takes a few moments, and then I already have the esrog in my hand. And even then, we have to tell the Yid to find his passion in doing it right as well, to doing it on time, and buying a nice little bit, buying a nice esrog, and make sure that everything is kosher and everything is put together according to Allah 100%. But every mitzvah is a different challenge, and sometimes a certain limited Torah could be extremely challenging. Sometimes it's a pleasure to learn Torah, but today I'm not in the mood of learning. So all these things are challenging. Every challenge is different than the other. But putting these mitzvahs in the right perspective, that it's all about Aneichi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, and align myself, the oneness of Hashem, I'm ready to give up my life, which is the ultimate challenge and the ultimate painful experience. I'm ready to give it up for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much more so when I put every mitzvah saseh in that perspective? How much more so I'm ready to overcome all these challenges, and any challenge, whatever challenge it may be. And this is, please, you could follow in the text, that this notion applies to the asay tov, the positive mitzvahs as well. One strengthen himself like a lion. with strength and determination of the heart. Now the expression kari, it's based on the first halachas of Shulchan Aruch. It's famous Yehuda ben Tema, it's a Mishnah which is brought in halacha. Yehuda ben Tema, that a person has to be giber kari, strong like a lion, and giber kari, kal kanesher, and Rot Katzvi, and swift like a leopard, and so on. So here the Alter Rebbe takes this expression, and in this context is Lizgaber Kari, one has to strengthen himself like a lion, with strength and determination of heart, neged Yetzer, against the Yetzer Hara, machbidas gufay, which makes his body heavy, umapilal of atzla, and places upon the body laziness. And where does the laziness come from? From the foundation, from the yesod, from the element of earth, which exists within Nefesh Bahamis. If you remember, and you could again find it in the previous classes, again with the text in TanyaOnline.com, and very organized there. You can look at the end of the first chapter, which the Alter Rebbe shows is that it's just like everything in this world has the four elements of Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afar, fire, water, air, and earth. Everything is the famous Rambam, and based on the famous Rambam, which Rambam writes that everything ultimately is comprised from these four elements. So too, the Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul, also has these four elements. And the Alter Rebbe shows every negative character trait which exists within the animal soul, we'll call it the Yetzer Hara, that it ultimately, he shows you which one of the four elements it comes from. So one of them, when it comes to atzlus, when it comes to laziness, the Alter Rebbe says this is the yesod afar. This is the element of afar, of dust, which is again on the lowest of the four. When you think about Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Afar, the way it is, the fire, the air, the water, and the dust, the one who is the lowest of all, the way it is physically in this world, is the dust, is afar, is earth. It's the lowest because it falls down. It is something which is it has a nature of nefila, of the nature of remaining down. So Alter Rebbe says that's the similarity to atzlus, when a person feels just to stay down, not to be motivated, not to move on with a special mandate in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Milhatriach gufay, which this character of laziness prevents the person from muching and to his body. In other words, lahatriach means to place effort. And bizrizus, to be haste when it comes to the Avodas Hashem. In other words, it's a hara place does everything to keep a person laid back. Mile hatriach, not to put great effort and to put great bother, not to mucha his body. And I say mucha his body doesn't mean Hashem wants to just mucha us. Just means to say that we have to be on top. We have to be motivated. In order, just like anything else, when you understand what this involvement is all about, if it's something very positive, it's going to bring you a lot of wealth or anything else. You run to do it and to do it perfect. So I just used the lashon latriach. Chas v'shalom, Hashem is not tircha, could be in the context of bother. Hashem is not bothering us. Rabbi Chaninah ben Akash Ratzah Kodesh Baruch Hu lezakas Yisrael, the famous Rabbi Chaninah ben Akash Emer, which we say every day in the end of after Mishnayos or anything, everything is any medrash is taught in a shul and so on and so forth. What does Rabbi Chaninah ben Akash say? Ratzah Kodesh Baruch Hu lezakas Yisrael. He wanted to bring us merit. Lefichach not only gave us Torah mitzvahs, but lefichach hirba leim Torah mitzvahs. He increased in the amount of mitzvahs which he gave us to perform. So even though every mitzvah is an effort, but nonetheless, we put it, like the difference someone understands if you're carrying a bag of stones or a bag of diamonds. It could be the same way, but once you understand it's diamonds, you don't really call it a tircha, even though physically it is a tircha. You're pulling, you're schlepping, and so on. I'm just translating, just stopping by the word milahatriach, which the Alter Rebbe so carefully uses, that the Nefesh Yetzirah says, don't bother. Don't bother. Don't be so hasty in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In all this effort and all this service, which could be called Avedas Masa, Aveda of a weight, again in the eyes of the Nefesh Bahamis, he says it's just a weight. It's just something which could be a burden on you. Chas v'shalom b'Avedas Hashem, in the service of God. And this is the suggestion of the Nefesh Bahamis. Calm down, cool down, don't get so excited. And again, coming from the mid of atzlus, coming from the mid of laziness. And Alter Rebbe says, I can identify that it takes effort, and I can identify that it takes exertion. That it is. Again, we are Avdei Hashem. We are servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we are the servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, despite it's an effort. But we know that this is our mandate. And again, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakis Yisrael, for our merit and for our good. Even and deeper than that, we're Avdei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and if it doesn't look what's good for him, he looks what's good for his master. Despite there's Tayrach, and despite this Amal, and we're asked more so to do it b'simcha. Avedis Hashem has to be b'simcha. Tachas Hashem le'avadas Hashem l'kacha b'simcha v'tuv levav. It's the famous Pirush of that Ezel. It's not enough you do the Aveda. The Aveda has to be done with joy and gladness of heart. Eve do is Hashem b'simcha. That it has to go all together with the Aveda. It's not only Eve do is Hashem and be b'simcha. The Aveda itself has to be b'simcha. Despite there's Teirach and Namal, there's effort and exertion. So they said, and sheyesh, but Tzibzak says identify there's Teirach v'amal. There is the effort, there's exertion, kigin label b'teirah. So like somebody, like the idea of toiling in Torah, be'iyun. In other words, not just to go through something just on the surface, but understanding it thoroughly. And sometimes it takes iyun. In other words, someone has to put his mind to it, and that is an effort. And more than that, we know one of the ways of a yid performing the mitzvah of limdat Torah is the Gemara says Chaim Levim Mitzayim Bepeh, that a person has to as well verbally utter the words of Torah, so as well he makes the effort also as he learns, like Pasuk Puma Migir said, that also with his mouth, that his mouth does not stop learning Torah. So first of all, again, there's the Puma that he puts with his, again, he performs the mitzvah of learning Torah, not only understanding, when he opens the Gemara, he doesn't like just present the scenario like he's sitting in a library gaining information, but he's doing the mitzvah of limdat Torah, and the mitzvah of Torah is again, be'iyun, one must understand thoroughly what he's learning. A blat Gemara is not Tehillim, Daf Hayemi is not Tehillim, or anything when one learns, it has to be thoroughly understood, or any part of Torah. This is the way we're Mekayim mitzvah of Torah, and it takes effort. It's not a matter of just going through the words, it's a matter of understanding, and understanding something thoroughly, it's the iyun, the understanding something thoroughly takes effort. And more than that, again, to perform the mitzvah of Limdat Torah, one has to verbally utter the words of Torah. So again, he doesn't hold himself back, or this is part of the Torah and Amal, this is part of the exertion of learning Torah, of verbally saying the words which he is learning. And more than that, in these words you see like Pasuk Pumeh, in the time which is devoted to learning Torah, he does not stop learning Torah. And if he has an hour, that's the hour he's devoting himself to learn Torah, not cutting corners, not 35 minutes, not even 45 minutes, like Pasuk Pumeh Migirsa. And more than that, if a person has the ability to learn an entire day, he has to learn an entire day. As we know, we explained, and we mentioned this in the past quite a number of times, that Limdat Torah is different than any other mitzvah. V'talmud Torah kineged kulam, not only, and again, the virtue of Limdat Torah, but the way it's performed, different than any other mitzvah. That once you do a mitzvah, you put on tefillin once, you don't have to put on tefillin again. You shake a lulav and esrog once, you don't have to shake a lulav and esrog that very day again. Till the next day, when it comes to Limdat Torah, every moment, essentially, a person has to learn Torah. And the only reason why a person is exempt to learn every single moment of the 24 hours is because a certain amount of hours he's sleeping, a certain amount of hours he's eating, or other occupations. In order to educate his children, he needs money to educate his children, so he has to put his mind and thoughts to other matters. But these are all exemptions, which Torah itself allows the person to go on and do, in other words, occupy himself with, but everything other than that time, a person is obligated to learn every other second, to learn Torah. So it's in essence that justifies the again, it's a lashon in Gemara regarding Rabbi, regarding David, namely Rabbi, the expression that he didn't stop learning because it's a matter of the mandate of Yid to learn Torah. It's it's not like the 5. If I don't start to learn the 5 minutes now and I go ahead and I learn 5 minutes later, it doesn't justify the previous 5 minutes that I had the opportunity to learn Torah and I didn't learn Torah, because Limdat Torah essentially is every second is just with exceptions which Hashem Torah itself gave the Yid the opportunity to daven, to learn, and even again to go ahead with his bodily needs like eating, drinking, and so on, or sleeping, and so on, in order for him to have the strength to go ahead and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the ways the Yid serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu by again learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. So that therefore there's the idea of the shiurim in Limdat Torah, like the famous Gemara in Shabbos, which speaks about the importance of person keveya itim laTorah, because it keeps the Limdat Torah structured. So like Pasuk Pumah Megirsa, if a person has the ability to learn 24 hours, Conceptually, if he learns 23 hours and 59 minutes, he's not mekayim the mitzvah of limud Torah b'shleimus in a complete way. Because if that minute a person has the ability to learn Torah and he doesn't learn Torah, it's a violation of limud Torah. That's the idea of like pasuk pum megir. So when it comes to learning Torah, it doesn't say it in any other mitzvah because it doesn't exist in the context of any other mitzvah. To hold the lulav nesri 24 hours, there's no point. When it comes to limud Torah, there is an idea that late pasuk pum megir, so a person should not stop learning Torah. But yet, on the ground, it's not possible for a person, it's not practical for a person to learn 24 hours. So because everybody has their needs, which Torah itself permits, to get involved again in other occupations based on rules of Torah, naturally rules of Shulchan Aruch, a person going to make a living and so on, or a person needs to sleep and to eat, etc., etc. So this in itself is the time when this is the reason why Torah or Yiddishkeit is built on the kviyasitim l'Torah. That I know myself, and I know, and it's a case by case. It's measured case by case. Everybody knows himself, and everybody has. Many times we're subjective. How much we could learn Torah. Many times we believe that I have to do this and I have to do that. That's why everybody has a mentor. Asay l'charav, and he goes over to his rabbi or his mentor, his mashpia, and he asks him, "This is my schedule. How much am I obligated according to Torah to learn Torah?" And after he suggests, the kosher Yid knows if this is what I have to do, this is the amount of time during the week that I have to designate to learning Torah, this is what he establishes. And he gets a chavrusa, he goes to a shir. This is the idea of kviyasitim l'Torah. So if you're looking at kviyasitim l'Torah, the time where the person designates for himself to learn Torah, either that time like pasuk b'megir. So if he can't learn 24 hours or any other time, at least that time, not to cut corners and to learn the entire time Torah, because that's the time that he designated based on Torah's emes that he's going to learn Torah. Is it an effort? Yes. The Alter Rebbe says that yesh ba Torah v'amal. I agree. I identify with that effort. And like we find that Azal tells us, that a person always has to place himself in the face of on divrei Torah, which means to understand that learning Torah is about sheir la'oil. It's like a ox which has placed a yoke upon it. Certainly, from the sheir can appreciate doing good work. It's meant to do good work, but it's still an oil. It's a yoke. The sheir sometimes feels a little more comfortable. You take off that yoke and let it do whatever it wants to do, eat and sleep and so on. Which is again the sheir within us, that in the nefesh habahamis. But la'oil, we put on a yoke on that, and we, just like again the sheir itself, it's not rebellious. Once it puts a yoke, it's on the plows, and it works, and does all the work that it's given to do for its master. But in the same way, but again, it needs the oil, it needs that yoke which is placed upon it. Similarly, we put upon ourselves the oil Torah, the yoke of Torah. That as I'll continue saying that it's similar to a donkey, which is used to carry weight. It's not necessarily rebels, but once it's still called a masa. Even to the donkey, it's still called a masa. It's still called a weight. And similarly to the Yid, he has to learn Torah in the same fashion. That despite right now, and needless to mention, we know, as we all know it, once we sit down and learn, because Baruch Hu granted us the notion of tainug in limud Torah. In the end of the day, we understand that limud Torah is very geshmak. Every subject of Torah, Mishnah, Gemara, Perik, Tanya, Sifin Shulchan Aruch. In the end of the day, once we fall into it, we see the beauty of of Torah. Like it says by David HaMelech, that he learned Torah, he misaneg. In the end of the day, it's a geshmak, but sometimes till we get there. Or more than that, the real geshmak is that I know I'm uniting with the Ein Sof, with the infinity of Hashem. That's the true geshmak. That I know every Torah, every Mishnah I learn, I'm becoming one with an unprecedented union with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And together that with is a geshmak also, and the information of Torah, and the scholarship of Torah. But as we know it, sometimes we only figure it out once we sit down to learn. But sometimes, like I say, till we sit down to learn, till we get ourselves to go to meet up with the chavrusa, come on time to the shir. This is where it takes the teirach and amal. And sometimes even when we sit down to learn, there's sometimes cracks and breaks and just because again coming from this message to be a little laid back and otzel, in other words, be a little lazy and laid back, not to be teireach, and not to place amal, toil and effort in our learning. And this is what the Razal tells us, that la'olam, that a person should place himself when it comes to divrei Torah kisher la'el, like an ox to the oil of Torah, to the yoke of Torah, to the chamer lamasa, and to the similar to the donkey when it's there again to carry its weight. So this is in the context of limud Torah v'chein mitfilah b'kavana v'chol koichim mamish. So when it comes to prayer, that a person doesn't say just to say the words again as lip service, but b'kavana with appropriate intention. The appropriate intent in his prayer, with all his efforts. And we know that it takes when a person sits down to daven, sometimes his mind, or many times, the mind goes astray in different directions. And therefore it takes effort. That person just to stay focused and to think Pirush HaMilas, and to know that there's a time that it's completely designated to pray, nothing else exists in those 45 minutes that he's praying. This is effort, and this is determination, and this is ultimately Teirach, and this is ultimately Amal. It's true, it's Teirach and Amal, which is effort and exertion. And so too when it comes to V'chein B'Avedas Hashem Shebidavar Shebimam, and so too when it comes in the context of in Avedas Hashem, the perspectives in Avedas Hashem associated with monetary ideas. Again, Avedas Hashem, we speak about Avedas Hashem has a broad bracket. It includes Torah, and it includes mitzvahs, and it includes davening. But in here, the Alter Rebbe speaks about the Avedas Hashem, which is another a challenge which we can all identify with when it comes to Avedas Hashem, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the context of monetary expressions, or expressions in our service HaKadosh Baruch Hu associated with money. For example, Avedas HaTzedakah, the Avodah of giving tzedakah v'keitzah b'elum, so this is the wars and the challenges and the fights of the Yetzer Hara v'tach b'leisav and his conspiracies lekar and nefesh adam to cool the soul of a person down. And it tells him shalei lahafker mamayne, don't just give up your money, don't make your money hefker, don't give so much tzedakah, don't throw so much money away, and so on. And in order to make the decision to do the right thing, because there's a demand right now for this tzedakah, you could make a difference. That means so many people can learn Torah. You can make a difference that children should go to sleep without hunger. And even it takes a great effort, because you have to give away a lot of money, and the Yetzer Hara is standing there and says, Leila hafker mamayne, don't be mafker so much money. Or similarly, ubriyas gufay, when it comes to learning Torah, sometimes we say, no, this is aching and that aching, and I'm really tired, and I'll have to sleep so much, and I have to sleep another hour. Or sometimes we get up in the morning, we start, the Yetzer Hara comes and says, no, you have to sleep a little more. Sometimes there's a chavrusa waiting, so there's a shir waiting. Don't worry, you'll make it on time anyways. And so what if you'll come 10 minutes late? These are all the Yetzer Hara telling the person, cool down, don't chas v'shalom harm your body. Your body needs to meet no more to be soothed. Agleta levi, like they say in Yiddish. Don't break your body so much. What about your briyas haguf, the health of your body? Now we're not talking about chas v'shalom, talking someone truly damaging his body. It's the Yetzer Hara. We're talking about the Yetzer Hara's persuasion to tell a person deep down he knows that it doesn't really damage his body. But the Yetzer Hara tells a person, no, you have to give in. This is about briyas haguf. This is about your health. Despite it's not so. And as we know, that not necessarily a person has to sleep so much. Not necessarily a person has to give in to this goof. And the more we get used to it, we realize we can free ourselves from the needs, again, without crossing the red line of chas v'shalom, truly damaging our body, which we're not supposed to. U'shmartem ma'ed l'nafshe seichem. Torah says not only guard your soul, meaning guard your health. Torah adds ma'ed, we have to guard our health very much. But on the other hand, conversely, we know that many times we stay back from things which we ought to do in our Avedus Hashem, and we translate, no, this is going to damage our body. I have to sleep a little more. You don't have to sleep a little more. You don't have to eat so much. And so on and so forth, or put so much time in this type of meal, that type of meal, as we all know it. And something we just get used to. And we look back a month before, where was I? What was I thinking? Did I really need that? I really didn't really need that. So this is all the presentations in the Yetzer Hara, in its battle and its conspiracies, the Lashon Alter Rebbe over here, to tell the person, don't be mafker your mammon, don't be mafker your money, and don't be mafker your briyas haguf. And Alter Rebbe says, I can identify, it's a challenge, and it is a challenge. And Alter Rebbe says, as we know, the term war is a justified term, and I have to overcome it. But now the Alter Rebbe comes back to this principle, and this presentation, and this principle of the previous weeks, in the previous chapters, that in the end of the day, once we understand that this is about identifying with Hashem Echad, the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and for the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm ready to give up my life. And to give up my life is a greater difficulty and a greater challenge, because we know the pain of death is nothing like the pain of death, shall we not never know about it. So when we put in that perspective and we say yes, to stand against the Yetzer Hara, which wants to cool us down, or to conquer the Yetzer Hara, that's much easier. It's difficult. I can identify. It's a war. It's difficult. It's a challenge. And something is very challenging. And it depends what mitzvah, depends what day I'm having, and so kind of day I'm having, etc. But if I put in that perspective, that's ultimately much easier than the challenge, or easier than enduring the pain of death. And for Avodah Zarah, for the keeping determined, chas v'shalom, not to violate the Aveda of Avodah Zarah, of idolatry, or aligning myself 100% with that. What is Hashem? I'm ready to expire. I'm ready to die. I'm ready to endure this enormous pain of death. So how much more so am I going to overcome this Yetzer Hara, which despite its challenge, despite its presentation, which is again classified as a milchama, as we all know it, I'm going to definitely overcome it. I'm going to definitely triumph. And we'll definitely be victorious in this war. Because despite its challenging, once I know that every single mitzvah, not only leisesa, but a negative command, but every positive command is tantamount to Anochi Hashem Elokecha, to the mitzvah of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, again aligning oneself with the oneness of Hashem. And for that, I would ready to give up my life despite the pain of death. How much more so am I going to overcome and triumph this Yetzer Hara, which despite its challenging, it doesn't come close to the challenge and the pain and the enduring the pain of death. Notice to conquer this Yetzer Hara, it's still close and it's so attainable to man when he pays attention to conquer the Yetzer Hara. And all this, different examples which I gave you, and all the much more which we all know. The Yosef says, the Alter Rebbe says, and more than that, in these above mentioned challenges, depends on the day, depends on the time. And again, as we look at every mitzvah individually, there are different challenges. But to do just the opposite of that presentation of the Yetzer Hara, it's much easier. It's hard, but it's much easier to endure this pain. Let's call it pain. In other words, to overcome this challenge than the pain of death. Give me God forsake us and guard us from. And the Yisurim Misa Hashem Yishmerena Mikabel Ba'ava B'Ratzon. And the pain of death, when it comes again to the Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the Yid would accept, and again it's part and parcel of the Yid, it's an innate expression of the Yid, to accept upon himself with love and desire even the pain of death. Not to separate himself even from the oneness and the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even for one moment, and again even an external manner, to bow down, to prostrate himself in front of an idol. So once we know that every mitzvah saseh is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, how much more so one has to accept upon himself with love and desire, in order to cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu eternally, when he will do this mitzvah, when he'll learn Torah, when he'll give him tzedakah, and so on and so forth. Have a great evening.